Hi everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter and Music Education. I'm really excited to be sharing with y'all tonight. Tonight I'm going to do a quick rundown of my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons. I'm going to then jump into 1st grade and talk about sort of some of the ins and outs of that 1st grade lesson and how and why and what I use to teach that lesson. And so I'm really excited to be sharing a little bit about that. Of course, there are going to be puppets and instruments and some other things along the way. So a couple quick things. Over the past couple weeks, I've been sharing about books that I'm planning to use for Hispanic Heritage Month, which comes up this September 15th through October 15th. So just a super quick rundown. If you didn't have a chance to catch those books, I did 3 live videos over the course of about the last 2 weeks, and I shared about all of these books that you could use potentially for your class, and those videos are linked in the video notes. So if you're on Instagram, you can check to my link in bio and go to the video link page and find those, or you can just go to YouTube and search me on YouTube and find them there. Or if you're on Facebook, the link at the bottom of the caption for tonight's video has a link to all of the show notes, the video notes for tonight, and you can find those there. But in case you want a quick rundown, in case you're like, oh, I don't know, do I want to see those books? So in the very first video, I did this book called Santiago the Dreamer, Land Among the Stars. That's a book by Ricky Martin, a really fun book about a boy who wants to be in a talent show and is a little bit nervous, and then his whole process of getting ready for that. This book, The Best Mariachi in the World, this is by J.D. Smith, illustrated by Danny Jones, and those 2 books were in the very first video, and this is about a boy who wants to be a part of his family mariachi band group and is not sure how he can fit in because he just doesn't play any instruments well, and how he becomes a part of that as a singer. And so that's a really cool book as well. Let's see, then I did a video about this book called Celia Cruz, Queen of Salsa. It's basically a biography. It tells a little bit about her story and her life, has some really beautiful pictures, but also gives lots of great details about her life and her life story. In that same video, I talked about this book called When Angels Sing. It's the story of rock legend Carlos Santana, a really fun book that talks about Santana and his learning to play the guitar and how he didn't start with that. He wanted to do other things, and they didn't work out, and then the guitar happened, and then his journey to becoming a great guitarist, how he played at Woodstock, and all of the cool things that happened in his life. Both Celia Cruz and When Angels Sing about Carlos Santana are the illustrations are gorgeous. So super cool books. And if you go watch those videos, I really sort of read through a good portion of them so you can see what's involved and then decide whether you want to order that book or not. In this last video, I shared about this book called De Colores. This is a board book. And this is it's listed on Amazon by its first translator, Patty Rodriguez. And also has Ariana Stein listed on there as a translator, but another just really cool book. And this is a book based on a very famous folk song. If you're aware of that folk song, this is a really great book to use with that if you teach it. Another one, Los Pollitos, another great folk song, especially for your younger kids. And this one is extra fun because it's not quite a pop-up, but it's one of those like reveal books. So it's another great one. And I shared in that video, but both of these are fun books because they're board books. So you don't have to worry about them getting hurt or ripped up or whatever, because they're that thicker paper and they're made really for preschoolers or young hands. So they're probably not going to get hurt as maybe other books might, paperback books. Another book I shared about in that last video was this book called Grandma's Records. This is a fun one that tells the story of a little boy who goes to spend summers with his grandma and how she plays records, and he's really introduced. He's American, grew up in America, born in America, but his grandma, through the use of her music, sort of helps him understand more about her story and her lifetime before she came to the States, and about just her sort of remembering back and remembering what Puerto Rico is like and being a part of that. And also it introduces you to, let's see if I can, Rafael Cortijo, Ismael Rivera, and Sammy Ayala, who it talks about going to one of their concerts. And so again, it's not just giving you the context and the history and the culture, but it's also showing you some of the music of Hispanic heritage. And then in the last live video, I talked about this book called Feel the Beat, which is not necessarily just for Hispanic Heritage Month, but is a great book that talks about all different cultures around the world through dance. It introduces you to those cultures through dance. And a lot of the dances that are featured in here are from countries that speak Spanish, from Latin American countries, and they're just a really fun introduction. And this is a great book, and I shared more about this in the last live video. There's one more, and this was one that I just stumbled upon because my building had a set list of books, or gave me a like, oh, there's this vendor and we're buying books for everyone. And I was like, well, are there going to be any music books? I don't know. There really weren't. But one that I thought was fun, that is not necessarily music, but gives me another avenue to use in Hispanic Heritage Month, is a book called Look What Comes from Mexico. And it talks a little bit about all of these just fun things that like kids will like, oh yeah, the food and the culture and the history and the fashion. And again, it's something that you can use just sort of in different ways if you're talking about different elements, musical elements, dance elements, cultural elements. So when you're looking through those like piles of books, or like there's a donation of books, look for things that maybe aren't necessarily music themed, but could be used in conjunction with other things, sort of like you use an encyclopedia. Well, nobody uses an encyclopedia anymore, but you used to use encyclopedia to get extra information and to get that corroborating research. So this can give a lot of fun details. If you give, a musician biography study about Celia Cruz, or about Carlos Santana, or Tito Puente, or something, you're going to have people look up more history. If you have these books like this about countries around the world, kids can then use them as they're trying to understand better. So all fun books, and I'll say that I started doing these videos about 2 weeks ago about these books, and I've had some people send me messages and say like, hey, have you heard of this one? Have you heard of this one? And for example, Grandma's Records is one that I did not have until someone said, hey, you should check that one out. And When Angels Sing about Carlos Santana, I didn't have until someone said, hey, check that out. So if you see books here that you're interested in, check them out. They might be really great. Or if you have any other books that you did not see me mention that you thought, well, I use this all the time, send me a message and let me know. I'd love to feature it, or to at least look through it and see how I might use it in my own classroom. If not, also just share out with this larger community. So those are all books you can use. And like I said, Hispanic Heritage Month starts September 15th. So you still have quite a few days if you wanted to do something, even if it just meant reading a book at the end of class. That's a great start. If it also means teaching a folk song, or teaching a folk dance, or doing something that helps students make that connection, it's a really valuable connection and totally worthwhile. Okay, so like I said, those books are linked in case you're interested in the video notes. I had a sort of busy day today, so if you go to the video links page right now, I know there's some things missing, and I have a list of things that I want to add. But if you notice something's not missing and a link doesn't get added, and you need that link, or you're interested in that resource, please send me a message. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com, or you can send me a message either through Facebook or Instagram, and I'll get it, and I promise I will add that link the best I can as soon as I can. And that makes me think of one more thing. As this video is going on, thanks to everyone who asks a question on Instagram or Facebook, or comments. When you do that, other people see those comments and questions, and they a lot of times will comment back. So it's fun to see the conversations that happen as this video is going on. If you're listening to this video as a podcast, weeks or months later, or you're watching the video itself weeks or months later, you can always go back to Facebook and look at those conversations, or you can even comment. If you're watching this on Facebook 2 years later, you can comment, and I go back and I see those, and I still end up leaving comments and questions back. So totally worth leaving comments. So I'm going to run through my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons for the week, and I'm going to share a little bit about each lesson, give you a quick rundown of the songs and resources and games and things that I use in that lesson, and then I'm going to jump back at the end of that sort of rundown and do a quick deep dive on 1st grade to share more about my 1st grade lessons. Okay, so starting with kindergarten, the kids are coming in. We have a choo-choo train song, which I've talked about before. I actually sang it last year in one of my live videos when I did a rundown on all of kindergarten. But it's just a very simple song that repeats. But mostly the best part about it, and you could use any train song, but the best part about it is that I have kids stay in their line and they mimic what a train would do. They stay hooked together, not physically touching, but they're right one after another. They move their arms like, wheels or whatever. And there's a part where they get to pull the chain for the whistle and make a whistle sound. So they're doing a vocal glide. But mostly what I like about the song, it's just a simple So-Me song, but mostly what I like about the song is that they stay in line. So then I can lead them around wherever I want. For the last 3 lessons, I lead them basically just around the big carpet, and we sort of make a circle shape. And that gets them to start thinking about, we're going to go and make a circle. We're going to go and make a circle. And so what I do in this lesson, which is my 4th time seeing students this school year, and I've had them since August 1st. The 4th time, I then take them in different places around the room. So instead of going straight to that circle, we make a left and we go around behind some desks, and we go around and we get close to the whiteboard, and we go over towards the instrument shelves. We do end up in the circle shape, but I take them around to places where I can sort of use that as a time to talk about the class rules. So when we go behind the teacher tables, I say, oh, there's a place we don't usually get to go, but the train took us here, and so we're here today. And so we go around, and it's fun because then kindergarten, the first 2 months of kindergarten are you spending time like, here's how you sit crisscross. Please keep your hands to yourself. We don't use that voice inside. It's all just like the logistics of how do you be a child, right? In elementary school. So in this lesson, I'm taking them around and showing them places where I do want them to go, where I don't want them to go, so that they get a sort of a sense of that. Okay, so we end up though in this circle shape. I see someone asking on Instagram, can you sing that song? So the song goes, choo-choo train, copy me and do the same. Choo-choo train, woo, woo, stop. That's it, and it repeats. I found it a couple places online. I also found it in a book called Orff Source Volume 2, which is a fabulous book to have. If you want, you can get that from West Music. But there are some other things that the Orff Source has for you to do, but it's, like I said, just a super simple song. We repeat it a ton of times as we're going around the room. So then we come and we make our circle. We do the circle song. We sit down. We've been working on engine number 9. And so that's a poem that we've learned. We say the poem, and we added a B section of just sort of sounds of choo, 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 choo. So what we're doing at this point is we're just sort of adding more. We add a little bit of movement. We stand up so that the form goes sing the song, do the choo, 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 and move sort of around the circle, and then stop, and then sing the song, and then choo, 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 and then stop, and then sing. So it's sort of a fun ABA. What I added last week, as I brought my train whistle to class. And so at the end, when they go, woo, woo, I go, stop. And and I go, wow, your whistle's so good. And they're like, where'd that come from? And I sort of hide it on my side. And so we sing again the next time, stop. And they go, and then they're like, no, Mr. Rao's tricking us, right? It's like this is happening. So eventually I do show, yes, I have my train whistle. And I actually have another train whistle, a different kind of a train whistle. And I show them, I say, do you think they're going to sound the same or sound different? Well, they look very similar. And so we decide probably they're going to sound sort of the same. They're both made out of wood. They both have the same sort of shape. And so then I play, and they do sound a little different, right? So, but mostly the same. We do that because the next thing I pull out is my slide whistle, and we do a little bit of compare and contrast. This is just critical thinking, is observing, looking, making assumptions, inferring. So do you think they're going to sound the same or they're going to sound different? Well, probably they're going to sound different, right? Because this is wood and it's sort of short, and this is metal and it has a slide part that comes out, right? And so we talk about some things that make them different, and then I say, okay, let's hear the sound. Oh yeah, those sound way different. So I put the train whistle down. We play around with the slide whistle a little bit. I do some examples for them, and they repeat with vocal glides. So when I go, and they go, and they get, and I even say, look, my finger in the slide goes like this. Can you make your finger slide through the air? And so then they sort of mimic the movement of the whistle, the going up and down, and also they mimic the sound with their voice. So again, this is sort of vocal exploration. It's getting them to get their voices warmed up, but also it's getting them to understand the up and the down. So when our hand goes up, our voice goes up. When our hand goes down, our voice goes down. This takes 2 minutes. I do a couple different examples, or I'll do it. But mostly I do this simple stuff like and just sort of simple things that get them to understand, their voice can make those sounds. It's okay to make those fun sounds. It's okay to do things that are a little bit silly, right? It's okay to do things that are a little bit silly, but also then they're tracing the shape, right? Because if they see my finger goes down, they're going to do boo, and that gets them to sort of predisposed to know that going down means sounds going down, voices going down, timbres going down. Okay. Lindsay asked, where'd you buy your train whistle? I'll find a link for that, and I'll put it in the notes. I'm going to put that on my list of things to remember to train whistle. So that, like I said, that just takes just a minute or two, but it's totally worth it to get that sort of going. And then I use the slide whistle for the next 3 or 4 lessons doing something like this at the beginning of class. We learned in the last lesson, where is Thumpkin? So we run through that. And I did a whole video about Thumpkin, but Thumpkin, Pointer, Tall Man, Ring Man, Pinky. It's a simple little game. We call it a finger play because your fingers are acting out the different parts. So your fingers come out, your fingers talk to one another, and then they run away. It's a very simple song, but the great thing about it is that you're teaching kids to be in control of their hands. You're getting them to identify how to use different fingers in different ways, because throughout music class, you're going to say hold your fingers like this around the mallets, or wrap your pointer finger around this part of the mallet, or, just different things. And so giving them a chance to sort of talk about their fingers, how they're going to, you're in control of your hands. What are you going to do? Those are all valuable things. So, and also it's a classic. It's a classic song. And then our friend Shelly comes out. They're going to meet Shelly, the puppet. This Shelly, you probably won't be able to find. I put a link on the links page of a really beautiful hermit crab puppet from Folkmanis. This one was part of an old math curriculum or reading curriculum or something that was going to get thrown out. He was going to get thrown out. Or she was going to get thrown out. And I saved her. And so now she's Shelly. And Shelly comes out. Eventually Shelly turns into helping us learn solfege. Later on in the year, she teaches law because she has the law claw. But in this initial lesson, Shelly just comes out, talks about the ocean. We do a little lesson about this song called Sandy Sand. And Shelly has helped us. She has trapped all the sand into these. And it's not really sand, right? But they like to think that could be the sound of sand, and this sand is nice because it can't get stuck on you and follow you home, right? Because that's the thing about sand that is so annoying, is that when you leave the beach, you have to brush off all the sand, and you just can't get it off because there's so much sand. Well, the song Sandy Sand is all about sand getting stuck to you and following you home. And the first part of the song goes like, you got sand on your head, oh yeah, you got sand on your shoulders, oh yeah. And we actually take our sand stuck in the egg. Sand on your head, oh yeah. You got sand on your shoulders, oh yeah. So we're moving the sand around. This is great for kindergarten or for any English language learners because you're moving this, which is, motor skills, right? You're in control, but also we're identifying different parts of the body with the English language words. And then the cool part is there's the sung response. You got sand on your nose, oh yeah. The kids just sing oh yeah over and over. And then there's a part that goes, sandy, sandy, sandy all around. You gotta shake, 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 shake it off. Now, so they're holding the sand and the egg and they're shaking their body and it makes that fun sound, which they love. So this lesson is part of a really fabulous, fantastic book called SOS, Songs of the Sea. This is by Lynn Kleiner, and it is just chock full of really great things. You can see I have tabs, several things. But I've used this book for years and years. I went to a Lynn Kleiner workshop. I thought she was fabulous. She liked puppets. Maybe helped inspire my love of puppets. And so I bought this book, and then I bought, over the next year or two, all of the rest of her books. They're really great. So this book, SOS Songs of the Sea, it comes with the information about Sandy Sand. Not quite maybe the lead in I gave it, but your own way to lead in. And then it has a recording, so you can play that recording and sing along with that with kids, which is super duper fun. So I have definitely linked that on the links page. Let me see if I can move this up. Quick before I move on, someone said, what age group do you use puppets with? Primarily primary, so mostly K through 2, but also sometimes for me to bring the puppets out. So if I can bring the puppets out, I do. But again, that's up to kids if they like it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes we'll bring them out for older kids and they're like, no. But other times it's totally fine. Then comes in Snowy the Owl. In the last few lessons, we met Peter the Rabbit, we met Flitter the Butterfly, and in this one, Snowy comes in, and Snowy uses her singing voice, and she sings everything, hello, how are you? Woo! And she uses sort of a high, lofty, sort of a head voice. She sings everything back and forth with kids. Hello, let me introduce myself. My name is Snowy. I love to use my singing voice. And sometimes she'll sing, hello, how are you? And she'll do, I live in the woods over there. Sometimes she'll do the interval singing. Sometimes she'll just do sort of more of a glide singing. There are all sorts of ways you can use. But like I said, this is one of my favorite ways to do it when Snowy comes in and sings about the singing voice with the kids. I did a whole video a couple years ago about how I use puppets to teach those 4 vocal timbres: whisper, speaking, singing, and shouting voice. So Snowy is the third in the sequence, and she teaches the singing voice with them. And then the great thing to end the day, we go back to our circle shape. She'll fly over, and if you put your hand out for her to land on, which we did in the last lesson, we did that with Flitter the Butterfly, but if you put your hand out, she'll stop and she'll sing and she'll go, who are you? And if you use your singing voice, she'll hear you, and you could go like, David, and she'll say, very nice. And if use your singing voice, she'll either do a high five, or she'll do a head bump, or she'll do a fist bump, or she'll give you a great big hug. She'll do all sorts of things just as a thanks so much for singing back to me. Yep, I'll put that link in there, Lindsay, for the 4 Voices video. But she likes to sing back, and so they're sitting in a circle. She'll fly over, she'll land on your hand, and then she'll sing back. And if the kids don't actually use their singing voice, that's okay. This is really, really early on. So she'll just, she's been modeling, I've been modeling. If the kids sing, great. If they say it, she still gives them a thanks. Or maybe if you want to say, ooh, that's great, one more time with your singing voice, it's so nice. Or whatever, with not a lot of pressure of like, I'm not moving on until you sing. Like, I wouldn't do that. But she sings with them anyway, and then if they give some sort of response, she'll give them a high five, handshake, hug, whatever, and then move on. And she gets around to all the kids and then flies back up to her perch. I love this Snowy Owl for a couple reasons. She's so soft, she's so sweet, the kids love her. Maybe she reminds them of Harry Potter, I don't know. Her inside the owl is a little sort of a joystick. You can have her head move, her wings flap, and then there's also a little bit of Velcro hidden in here, so if you want her wings to stick together, they can do that. But Snowy is just such a sweet, inviting presence for my class, and so they love singing with her and for her. Okay, moving on. More puppets to come, but moving on. Oh, and one more thing about this. I wanted to talk just a little bit about lesson planning in general, sort of at the end of this quick run through. But there was a song that as I was planning, a lot of times when I plan, I'll take my last year plans and I'll use that as a template as I plan for the current year. And one of the things that was in here was a song that I just didn't love. It was a song that, like, it had a purpose and it fit really well in the plans, and but the thing was that I got bored with it. The kids never really took to it, and so I was like, this doesn't feel right, so I took it out. And I replaced it with Sandy Sand in this lesson, and that felt a lot better. Kids like Sandy Sand so much, and so I just felt like it's okay. I can take it out. If I want to bring it back later in the year, I can. But I would just say, don't feel like you must do those lessons that you've always done just because you've always done them. If it's not working, if you're hating it, if it's not what's right for you, take it out. Switch it out. There are so many songs in the elementary music canon and in folk songs and all around the world that why stick that one thing if it doesn't feel exactly right. So, okay, that's my quick moment. I saw a couple questions really quick. The Snowy Owl you can use for so many different things. Denise says, how long are your kinder classes? All my classes, K through 5, are all 45 minutes once every 7 school days. Can you link the 4 Voices video? Yep, I'm going to put that on my list. Let's see. I'm going to come back to some of these longer questions. And where can you get the train whistle? I'm going to put that on there too. 4 Voices. Okay, so I'm going to skip first grade because I'm going to do a deep dive into that, so I'll come back to that in a second. Someone on Instagram said, can you help me with puppet ideas? I tagged you in a post on my page. I saw that. Didn't have a chance to respond today. I've done a lot of puppet videos, a lot of puppet blog posts on my blog, so I will connect with you and send you some links, or just check out makemomentsmatter.org and search puppets. You'll find a lot of stuff. But I'll connect back with you later. Second grade, in this last lesson, the previous week, we learned a song called Charlie Over the Ocean. So when they come in, we do a quick little circle song. They've done now kindergarten, first and second grade. They come in, sit down, and then we play this little game before we get to Charlie Over the Ocean. And the Charlie Over the Ocean the game we do is the copycat game. And Tabby, my cat, comes out because she gets to do the copycat with me. Yeah, I do the copycat with him. Yeah, so I get to do the thing. Right, so anyway. Yeah, so then the next thing, what was the next thing? The next thing is that we get to with the kids, and then, are you going to let me go? Are you going to let me go? Okay, you need to stop. Okay, you need to stop. Okay, so anyway, so the kids think that that's hilarious, right? But the copycat copies me. Yeah, I copy him, but I do it better. Yeah, because I'm Tabby. Tabitha, hello, nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm Tabitha. So Tabitha comes out, and they think that that's really fun to do the copycat with me. But then the whole copycat poem, we eventually will learn, and it goes, copycat, copycat, 1, 2, 3. Do what I do after me. Anything I do, you do the same. That's how you play the copycat game. So my cat, you need to wait until I'm all the way done. Oh! So wait until I'm done talking to say your thing. Say your thing. That was closer. That was close. Oh. Sorry. Okay, so let's try. So if I said ta, ta, ta. Ta, ta, ta. Yes! Okay, if I went clap, 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 clap. Clap, 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 clap. Yeah! Okay, so then I like to use the puppet in this moment because they think it's funny. It helps me teach the song in sort of a way that's not as monotonous, of just like, okay, here's the thing. But they think it's fun. They think it's funny. They like interacting with Tabitha. Also, Tabitha can be my great example of what to do right and also what to do wrong. Because if a kid does it wrong and I talk to the kid about it and the kid feels like, oh, he singled me out, then that's going to be a sort of a knock to them. But if I single out Tabitha, the kids can learn from that interaction, and then they can learn how to do it right. And then they don't feel like they've been singled out. So Tabitha is sort of my fun way to do that. Also, I love this Tabby. I think it's just such a super fun little cat. So anyway, Tabby is a little bit annoying, but she comes back and does other fun things later. When we talk about imitation, she comes back for that too. So then we learned Charlie Over the Ocean in the previous class. The copycat thing only takes like 3 or 4 minutes, but it's something that we'll use over and over throughout the year, so it's worth taking the time for that. So Charlie Over the Ocean, we already sang through it in the last second grade class, so we're doing it again this time. This is just a chance for them to practice and to try it. And then we start into another favorite folk song I've done for a couple years called Little Sally Walker. There are a ton of different versions of it. If you have the book called Step It Down, and I have that book right here, I'll put a link for that. A really, really, really wonderful book. If you have Step It Down by Bessie Jones and Bess Lomax Hawes, this is a really wonderful book for authentic African American playground songs and other just folk songs that are totally worth trying with your kids. The version I do of Little Sally Walker comes from this book, but there are about 100 different versions. Little Sally Walker, Little Sally Water, all different things. I have a favorite folk song kit I made for it that I use with kids, but it's just a super fun little song that you do in a circle, and like I said, there are 100 different versions. So my version goes, Little Sally Walker, sitting in a saucer, crying and a weeping over all she's done. Rise, Sally, rise, wipe the tears from your eyes. Put your hands on your hips, let your backbone slip. Shake it to the east, shake it to the west. Shake it to the one that you love the best, or you like the best. So there, it ends up, once we learn the whole song, there's a girl or a boy who sits in the middle of the circle. They get to be Little Sally or Little Sammy, and they'll stand up, they'll shake, and then at the end, shake it to the one that you like the best. They put their hands over their eyes, they put their finger out, they spin, and then they point on the word best, they stop, and whoever they're pointing at, that kid replaces them. So just a super fun, simple song, but one that the kids really love. And like I said, because it comes from, the playground, or it comes from a children's game, it's one that's going to, probably resonate with kids because it's worked for so many years with kids as a game. So a super fun little song. Third grade, we start with a song that they really haven't done, another folk song called Old Brass Wagon. It's a folk dance song. It's a song with a folk dance that accompanies it. And so the thing I like about this song is that the words teach the action. So the first one goes, circle to the left, old brass wagon, circle to the left, old brass wagon, circle to the left, old brass wagon, you're the one, my darling. And then you do circle right, you do in and out, you can do swing your partner, all these different things you can do. So there are lots of different fun versions of that. And this is a folk song. Again, there are sources all over that you can find this. I did a favorite folk song set for it, so if you have that resource, you can use that. But it's just a really fun song. And one of the things that I'm doing is that my my PE teacher and I are going to be doing a family folk dance night later on this semester. And so this is one of the songs that's going to go into that. And it's just a really fun song to pull out and use because it saves me a little time because it teaches the actions as we're learning the words. So just a really great song. This is the first time I've ever done a family folk dance night, so especially third grade songs or dances. If you have suggestions, please email me, makemomentsmatter@gmail.com, or send me a private message. I'd love to know your suggestions for that because I've never done it before. I'm doing it with my PE teacher, and I'm just a tiny little bit nervous. So that's coming up. But Old Brass Wagon to be part of it. And then after we do Old Brass Wagon, which maybe takes 10 or 15 minutes to the lesson, the rest of that lesson is devoted to another fun dance, the Grumpy March. And if you have this book called Sashay the Donut by the New England Dancing Masters, it has all of the lesson ideas about the Grumpy March. And there's another version if you go to Rob Amchen, or if you look up Robert Amchen on YouTube. He has a really great video of how to perform this dance with students. Rob Amchen, while I'm talking about him, he has so many videos on YouTube that are so super amazing and helpful. He was my level 3 teacher for my ORF levels, so he's just so brilliant, has written a bunch of great books. He teaches at the University of Kentucky and very frequently will film his Introduction to Orff class or his Introduction to Music Ed, Introduction to Elementary Music, classes at the University of Kentucky, and he puts those on YouTube. So go to his YouTube channel and just learn so much. But if you want a printed version and you own this already, or even if you don't, it's a great resource to have. And let's see if I can find the Grumpy March. Well, oh, there it is. Okay, so the Grumpy March, the cool thing about it is that in there it gives you step by step, here's the first 16 beats, here's the next 16 beats, and little notes and ideas about how to make that work. And so the other great thing is that most packages like this come with, visuals, they come with CDs, things like that. So go check that out. It's a super great resource. Anything from the New England Dancing Masters is worth it. But the Grumpy March comes from Sachet to Donut. Great book. And you can find that on West Music. You can find it in a lot of different places. The fourth graders, we start out and we do another great favorite song of mine called Farmer's Dairy Key. I use the version of this lesson with a sort of a lesson format, lesson outline from this book called As American as Apple Pie. This is by Jeff Kriske and Randy DeLellis, who wrote the Game Plan curriculum, the Game Plan textbook series, which I know a lot of people use and a lot of people love. This is one of their standalone books, and it's not quite as long as Game Plan. It's not at all, and it's not laid out as a sequence as a curriculum. This is supplemental songs and lessons, only about 40 pages, but I use so many lessons from this book. I know I've talked about it before, but it is an absolutely fabulous resource to have in your classroom, and you can use with a lot of different grades. So totally fun and worthwhile doing. But we do Farmer's Dairy Key, and the version that they do in there, they have a fun little sort of a game that they throw in as a B section with the game, where they incorporate rock, paper, scissors. So it's a total win lesson with kids and has a lot of great teaching things in there. They get to sing, they get to move, you can add an Orff accompaniment to it, just really great and customizable for however you want to use it. And then we end the day by learning Chicken on a Fence Post, another super well-known folk song in the elementary music world, but the version we do, I learned at my Orff levels, and so it has an Orff accompaniment to it. There's a fun movement game with 2 concentric circles, sort of a chase game. And it's always been a favorite of my students where they ask, can we do that one again? Can we do that one again? So I know that it's going to be a great one, but it teaches a lot of great things too. And then 5th grade, they come in, we spread out. And one of the things I was doing all my lessons in the last week. With one of them, I ended up having more time than I thought. And so I pulled out rhythm cards and was reading through and practicing them with kids. And I realized a lot of them were just having difficulty with things that I thought they should know. And so one of the things I'm doing is they're coming in, we're doing attendance, all that quick stuff. And then we're going to do just a quick run through a rhythm reading PowerPoint. I'm just throwing something together, and we're just going to read through rhythms really quickly to start the class. I don't usually do this, but I know that they're in 5th grade and they should know a lot of these rhythms, and they just apparently aren't as comfortable with them as I thought they were. And so that's something that I want to try and reinforce, and I'm going to do periodically through the year, is just more reading sort of for 2 minutes, 3 minutes at a time really quickly. And this is when you can use technology to just pop up rhythm cards on the board. You could take pictures and put them up there. You could create a PowerPoint. You could use a document camera, but it's just a quick way to just sort of review a little bit. Or you could just do it old school and hold up some cards in front of the kids. That would work too. Then we run through, and the rest of the lesson is devoted to a song called Shanghai Chicken, which I learned from Amy Abbott, a really fabulous Kodai presenter, Kodai teacher. And it's an old folk song, but the thing that we do to make it a little bit different is there's an egg passing game egg shaker passing game that goes along with that. And so my egg shakers come out again, and we do some passing, some creation, some fun things with that. And Amy has written a blog post about that, which I will link in the notes for this video. Okay, let me jump back to 1st grade, because that's where I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive today. And let me talk through a little bit of that. So when kids come in, We come in, we do the circle. They get the same, they get the same time with Tabitha, the cat, where Tabby comes out and does her little shtick, where she tries to copy me. Yeah, I'm copying you. Yeah, and we do that thing, the back and forth. The first graders still love Tabitha, even though they might have seen her a little often on in kindergarten. But K1, 2, they're all about, someone interrupting the teacher or derailing the lesson. They like that Tabby's in there to sort of foul things up, even though really I am controlling her. I mean, that's one of the things I love about kids is like, ooh, this is so silly. Oh my gosh, what's happening? I am in control of this puppet, and she is here to do my bidding. So really, Tabby's here to help them sort of learn the process and get through all of that. But they think that that's really funny. We start in a circle. Still in second grade, part of what we do in these first few weeks is teach them how to move. So we talk about dispersing, we talk about finding personal spaces, we talk about, or a bubble space, a space where I could walk all the way around you without touching anyone or anything. I don't encourage kids to do helicopter arms where they put their arms straight out and spin around. I teach kids to take your hands, draw a circle around you, and as long as you're not touching anyone or anything, you're in a great personal space. Because, the kids who put their arms straight out and spin around just to hit other kids on purpose, or to be like, you're in my spot. Well, I say, you're second grade now? You can take your fingers and just draw a quick circle, and I'm sure you'll be able to find your own good personal space. So, but I take that time in this lesson to say, here's how we go out to our good spaces, here's how we find spaces, here's what a good space looks like, maybe not this kind of a space, don't sit too close to the front door, you could get hit by the door if it open. So just things that it's worth taking those 2 minutes to explain it at the beginning of the school year, because kids need that reinforcement. So we do that, we sing head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I think I maybe talked about this last week, but for me, it's a completely worthwhile song, even in second grade. Really, it's sort of a even in first grade, it's sort of a reminder of things that they've done before. In the last lesson, we just sang through and learned it in case there are kids who didn't know it. And there's value to just that, because you're teaching different body parts, which is especially good for English language learners, but just for other kids too. It's good to go over, vocabulary of your body, and you sing that, right? So it's a fun song for that, great for English language learners. What we do in this lesson is we take out a word. So instead of going head, shoulders, knees, and toes, you take out one word and just think the word. You audiate, which is a term that music learning theory folks use, and other folks use too. But you just think the sound in your head. You sing it in your head, but not out loud. Shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. Shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. So you just take one out, and then you'll take out knees and toes, knees and toes. Knees and toes, knees and toes. And I just keep it all sort of steady because I don't want them to, part of the thing about audiating and keeping that idea and singing in your head is singing the full value in your head. So I don't want them to go knees and toes, knees and toes, knees and toes. I want them to give the head, shoulders, knees and toes. I want them to actually go all the way through that entire sound in their head. So sometimes I'll mouth it, but not sing it out loud. Knees and toes, knees and toes. It's sort of a placeholder for them so they know where the word should go, right? But it's a simple thing, and it's something that, it's just a fun song. We'll actually know there are a lot of really wonderful pedagogical uses for it. So here's why we're doing it. But it's a really great song for kids for just a ton of different reasons. So then we do another fun song. We do a song called Hop, Old Squirrel. So in my, like I said earlier, I mentioned already that a lot of times when I'm doing lesson plans, I'll take what I did from the previous year and I'll set it next to me as I'm lesson planning so that I can say like, ooh, yeah, that worked really well. Let me take that same sort of a scope in there. Let me take and move that sort of over, and how am I going to modify and how am I going to change? Well, in this lesson sort of format from last year, as I was going through, I realized there was a song in there that I don't want to do anymore. There's a song called Jim Along Josie that I've shared about before. I shared it in videos like this. I've actually shared it in workshops that I've taught. And I was at a workshop in Chicagoland area at the end of last school year, and I taught that song, Jim Along Josie. Hey Jim Along Josie, hey Jim Along Joe. It was a fun song. I found it in, one of the big, huge books of folk songs. And I thought it was such a great song because you can change the words. You can go, walk Jim along Josie, walk Jim along Joe, or skip Jim along Josie. So I loved it because it was an easy song. Kids really, latched onto quickly. They could sing really well, and you could take out those words and change those movement words. Well, in that workshop, someone came up to me later and said, hey, did you read the article about Jim Along Josie? It's, has sort of a weird, sort of a racist history. And I was like, I think you mean Jump Jim Joe. That's another, there's this other song. It sounds very similar words. And, that's one that's been, people have circulated that article a lot. She's like, no, I think Jim Along Josie is also not great. And she sent me a link, and lo and behold, it really had a sordid history. And so, I thought a couple things in my head one was, well, I've got to get rid of this song. And I feel embarrassed that I didn't know this. Part of it is that it came from a big folk song collection, and the people who put that together have done a ton of research. But even if you're in a folk song collection, maybe the people who did those collections knew the history and didn't care, or didn't know the history, or there are a lot of factors into why it might be already printed in a book. But for me, it created a moment where I had to decide, am I going to keep it for my classroom or am I not? And immediately the answer was no. And so I took the song out. I'm not teaching in workshops anymore. But part of me was like, well, what am I going to use instead? Because it did work really well to do different movement words, and kids could sing it really well. And, it worked really well. But let me just say, just because it worked really well doesn't justify using it. So that little spark of, oh, well, what else could I use? That one worked so well. There are hundreds and thousands of folk songs that have been sung through over the centuries of people singing, and there are so many other songs that you can use. So I went back to the anthologies, I went back to the internet, went back and searched for more, and I came across Hop Old Squirrel, which I'd done like ages ago but had stopped doing for some reason. And it's sort of perfect timing that Hop Old Squirrel works so well, because I just happened to get a squirrel puppet. And so why not use my squirrel puppet? Am I on camera? Yeah. So why not use my squirrel puppet to use this for this song? So in case you're not, okay, squirrel, come back here. In case you don't know the song goes, hop old squirrel, idle-dum, hop old squirrel, idle-dum-dee. Hop old squirrel, idle-dum, hop old squirrel, idle-dum-dee. And this song makes a really great song that you can change the words. Skip old squirrel, idle-dum, skip old squirrel, idle-dum-dee. Or run old squirrel, idle-dum. And having the squirrel just makes it that much better, because the squirrel can interject and say, I do not want to run anymore. In fact, I'm very tired. Okay, well, but could you do some sort of movement? Yeah, but I don't want to move anymore. I am tired. Okay, but could you do like wiggle? Wiggle doesn't mean you have to move through the space. You can wiggle just standing right there. Okay. What would we call that kind of a movement? Oh, I would say that's non-locomotor. Oh, because you're not moving through the space, right? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so can you show us? Wiggle old squirrel, idle-dum, wiggle old squirrel, idle-dum-dee. And of course I'm singing at my own range, but you could do it with kids really easily. It's a fun song to do, and it does teach all of those things that Jim Along Josie did. But it's just a little bit more fun for kids. It's fun for kids. I can use my puppet, and I know that it doesn't have connotations to it that might be offensive or hurt some people in my classroom. So it's the right choice for me. So I would say, like I said, there are hundreds and thousands of songs that we can use. It might take a little bit of digging, or going on to a music forum or a Facebook group and saying, hey, what do you do to teach whatever concept, and make that change. It's totally worth it. So my little squirrel comes out. We do Hop Old Squirrel. which is great because he's going to come back later in the year for Let Us Chase the Squirrel up the hickory, down the hickory, let us chase the squirrel up the hickory tree. And so then he'll come back, and it's fun to have the squirrel already sort of in the repertoire because he'll come back and do his squirrel there. In the last song we did Peanut Butter and Jelly, and I showed you a video of how I sort of process through that with kids in sort of a more critical thinking way of talking about where do peanuts come from, and how do we get peanuts, how do we make peanut butter. And so in this lesson I spend more time talking about is this part of the song singing voice or speaking voice or whisper voice, because we use whisper, singing, and speaking all in this one song. So in the last lesson it was more of like the critical thing of how does the song progress, the story of the song. And in this lesson it's more of analyzing the song, thinking about how the song works. So the song, in case you're not familiar, goes peanut, peanut butter and jelly. Peanut, peanut butter and jelly. So we can talk about the peanut, peanut butter. Which voice was that? And they can answer, how about and jelly? Oh yeah, okay, so we can talk about the different things. The verses go like, first you take the peanuts and you dig 'em, you dig 'em, you dig 'em, dig 'em, dig 'em. So then that's a speaking voice and sort of more of a poem recitation. So we can talk about the different parts of that. And it's a great song for sort of remembering what we did in kindergarten, identifying that, and then talking about that. So it's the same song that I did in my last lesson. I'm just using it in a different way. And then at the end of talking through and thinking through that song, we could just sing it one time through because kids want to have that last final run through. They want to do that. So using that at the end is sort of great for them. Okay, a couple quick things before I'm out of time. So when I'm planning for my lessons, I've already talked today about how I take lessons from before and I use them sort of as a template. What worked well, what didn't work well. So one of the things that I do as I'm teaching the lesson, let me see if I can find, oh yeah. So as I'm teaching the lesson, after my rotation is done, I go back and I annotate. And so on my lesson plan, I'll scratch out, like didn't get to that, didn't have time. Or I write in like, use this puppet, or I say like, use this instrument, or I might modify, because sometimes what you plan is not really what ends up working the best, or you stumble onto something that works really well, or a connection you made. So I write that into my plans, because like I said, I take those plans from last year and sort of have those next to me as I'm planning upcoming things. One thing that really helped me in the first couple years as an elementary music teacher was a really solid lesson plan template. This is one I got from a friend. It's sort of modified and changed. I have this on my Teachers Pay Teacher store as a freebie, but one of the things about this specific template is, up here is a bunch of stuff that really helps me make sure that I'm hitting all my goals. So there's a spot where I can check off the national standard I've done. I can check off sort of the focus area, singing, pitch matching, all of that. I can write up my objective and how I'm hitting my district checkpoint, and also how I'm assessing in the lesson. I'll be honest, these 3 boxes are mostly for my administrator, because when he or she walks in and is, assessing me, they can look at the lesson plans that I had to submit to them anyway, and they can say, the learner will be able to sing simple unaccompanied melodies in a limited range. Oh, okay, and then they can observe that. I don't really need this so much, but I do have to post this, and my principals like seeing that. So I've had a couple administrators say, your lesson plans help me know exactly what you're doing in your class. And especially for those administrators who have no idea what we do in the music room, this is really helpful. They can see that we're being very purposeful about the standards. They can see what we've already done before and what we're doing next. And they can see sort of all of that. Some of the other things that I really like that I use that I still fill in, even though probably I maybe don't need to, I fill in the vocabulary we're specifically working on. I have a spot for materials that I need. So like this puppet, this song, this instrument, because it just is no good if you're like, oh my gosh, I need that instrument, but it's over in the closet. Well, that's no good for you because you can't go into the closet when your kids are in the room, or because what if something happens, or a kid smacks another kid, or a principal walks in, you can't go in the closet, or you can't go into your storage room, or you can't go down the hall. So it's good to have this so that as you're like quickly flipping to that, getting ready for the lesson in the morning, you can see what you need to pull out. I also have, this seems sort of silly, but 45 minutes feels like a lot of time. With first graders it's not, but it feels like it. So I sort of break things down into 3 big chunks. Sometimes I'll divide that in half so that I can see 5 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this. It helps me sort of visually plan out. When I used to have class with no break in between, this sort of a lesson plan format was really helpful because it helped me rethink of what the flow is for that next lesson, that next class coming in. I know a lot of people don't need this. Probably I could get by with not doing this. But like I said, it helps me stay focused and on track. It helps me remember what vocabulary I need. It helps me think of all the stuff I need, and my administrators really like it. So it's very helpful. If you want to use this lesson plan format, I have an editable version on my Teachers Pay Teachers store. It's a freebie, and I'll put a link to that in case you're interested. A couple more things that I do to help myself. So along the way in this video, I've talked about, I pulled this song from As American as Apple Pie. I pulled this song from Sashay the Donut. I pulled this from Step It Down. I pulled this from SOS Songs of the Sea. It's great to have all these books, and I have them tabbed, right, and all ready. But, for one lesson, even for first grade, I might have 4 books that those activities come from. So if I know the song, like I know it, that's great. And I can just, not worry about it. But there are some songs where it's like, I haven't done this one in a couple years, or I've never done it before ever. And so what I'll do is I'll take these books, which I already own, and I just take and I photocopy just the page I'm using. And then I put that in, I take that and I stick it in right behind the page for that class. So right behind it is that song I can use as a reference. It's not the whole lesson. I'm not saving it and distributing it. I'm using it for myself, and I'm only using it for that lesson. And then what I do when I'm done is I stick it in the back of the book, so the next time I teach that, I don't have to copy off or whatever. I can just pull it out and go, okay, I'm going to stick it with my lesson in my lesson plan book. Because my lesson plan book sits on my piano, has all my lessons in there. One of the other things I do, so I've got my lessons here, they're tabbed out by the different grades. I put on the top left, lesson 4, and then right behind it, lesson 3, lesson 2. So they're all in there, so if I need to go, ooh, what did we do last week? I can quickly see that, and I can quickly just check through and remember. If there's like one homeroom who didn't get it, a lot of times down here in the bottom where it says notes extensions, I'll put like, Miss Adams' class, they were gone this day on a field trip, or whatever. And the last thing that I do, and this is another freebie in my store, I put this, I call it a song and poem map, but whenever I introduce a new song or a new thing, I write down on the left that song or poem, and it's color coded. The poems are green, the songs are purple, and the concept is pink or whatever. And then on the side I'll put when I introduced it, because there will be a lot of times where, like in March, I'll have 3 minutes at the end of class, or somebody came in and they're out of the rotation. Did we do this song already? I can't remember. So I can flip back. If I've done all my work every time I do a lesson and I write it down, if I've done that work, then I know, like, oh yeah, we did that song. And it's nice to have that in there. Okay, I've talked about a lot today. I hope it was a little bit helpful. Like I said, it's been a busy day, busy weekend, so I don't have all the links on the links page yet, but I'm going to go add those right now. If you notice something that doesn't end up on that links page, let me know, and I'd be happy to add a link to that, or send me an email. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com. I'm happy to send you links if I'm able to, if I'm available to do that. So thanks so much for your questions and comments along the way, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and by the next couple hours, a great week teaching, and I hope you had a great night and a great long weekend. All right, bye everyone.